I welcome you one more time to the Semaj MindSpa, where mind, spirit, and science meet. We're doing so now on Fit FM 96.7 and fitfmja.com because you know the internet is also the most connected place. I want to thank the founding sponsors for the Semaj MindSpa Network, Jamaica National Group, JN, will help you find a way. That's their tagline, and that's also what we do. We help you to find a way so we can get through this thing called life. Well, good evening one more time. My name is Leahcim Semaj. I'm Dr. Leahcim Semaj, and you are inside the Semaj MindSpa, where mind, spirit, and science meet all together. The ideas in the Semaj MindSpa network are like pebbles being dropped in the lake of life. You know, pebbles just spread out, creating ripples that travel further than anyone expect. You never know where it's going to end up. Reshaping minds, moments, and entire ways of seeing the world. It's fluid. Small at first glance, but capable of sending waves of clarity across the whole surface of your thinking. We start with a little component, and before you know it, you are a transformed person, seeing things differently. You have woken up. It's all possible. Each one triggering a chain reaction of insight, awakening, and unstoppable personal evolution. You know, my objective is we should all aspire to be the best version of ourselves. The best version. These ripples disturb. What they disturb? Stagnant components. Stagnant water, breaking old patterns, setting new current in motion. It triggers chain reaction of insight, as I say, awakening different levels that you never even thought you were capable of. Simple acts that create profound shifts, step by step, piece by piece. Good evening again, and welcome. We're here to create a space of calm, clarity, and better thinking. So we greet our immediate Trelawney family because that's that beautiful little space of Jamaica. Then we spread across the north coast and around western Jamaica via Fit FM 96.7 FM via the airwaves. But then, folks, MindSpa network is large. We go out to 6 or 7 countries. People tuning into this dot. We greet the world on www.fitfmja.com. We hail up those who are listening from Winall Network, Atlanta, and we'll hail those from the Caribbean Vibes Radio Network, Cape Cod, Massachusetts. So you see how interconnected the world is. All the pieces are working together. And we talked about the ripple of life. It just keeps spreading all around. So now, our show today, baby boomers. You know who those are? Tell you in a minute. Let's explain what happened. There's some confusion in the mind of baby boomers. We want to help you to forgive yourself. And also, time for you, baby boomers, to do you. Now, who are the baby boomers? These are people who were born somewhere between roughly 1946 and 1964. There was a surge post World War II, and that group of persons are called the baby boomers. Some interesting things happened during this time. Now, we're talking to specifically addressing baby boomers. Again, born between 1946 and 1964. Oh, I am in that group. I was born 1951. So it's big people business we're dealing with now. Huh? Big people business. Now, why the focus? We talk about the various generation, the baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, Gen A. With time, we'll talk about more. Each had their own peculiarities. But tonight, we're dealing with something that is peculiar, one of the concerns of the boomers. So we're entering a deeply personal space. A question many of you have whispered, some have cried about it. Hmm? The question many boomers are asking themselves, what did we do wrong? What did we do wrong in terms of how we raised our children? No? Are you one of those who with that concern? You see, it's an interesting time now, you boomers are approaching retirement. Some have even retired. But look, you will live in another 15, 20, 25 years, a lot of time to punish yourself. So we ask the question, what did we do wrong in raising our children? But more importantly, what I want to do with the program tonight is release you from that so you can stop punishing yourself, understand what really happened, and give you some solutions how you can correct as many of the points of controversy and pain as you can. All right? We're going to try and do that. Now, how do we release you? First, I want to say, look, it's the wrong question you're punishing yourself with. Some of you are looking at your children and something doesn't add up. Now, let me begin with some clarity. How did we raise our children who now, many of them are so self focused? They act so entitled. Many care about nobody but themselves, not even you as parent. Many are emotionally distant, sometimes painfully indifferent, and it even gets worse sometimes. So when you look back at how you raise your children and you wonder what you did wrong, you tried, you know you tried your best, but you look around and for a number of you, it never worked out. You are disappointed in them to the point of tears. You are not looking at failure. You're looking at change. And I want to explain the changes so you can understand what really happened. The question is not what did we do wrong? That's not the question. The question is how did we manipulate? How did we deal with the changes? We can sum up what happened many times, using the words of a friend of mine, Dr. Caroline Cooper. She says that many of us tried very hard to give our children what we never got. And what we ended up doing is not giving them what we actually got. Think about that. You wanted your child to be better off than you. Most of us came up rough. My first 12 years were spent below Torrington Bridge in a city, Kingston, ghetto Kingston. Lived in one room most of the time. My mother has a wonderful story in subsequent years where she talked about that sometimes the room we lived in was so small. If you're in the room and you want to change your mind, you have to go out, change your mind, and come back in because there wasn't even enough space to change your mind. But you see, I have pleasant memories of that, because even our little one room, we had a dining table, small in the corner. And I remember this thinking my mother said every time we went to eat, we went to set the table with the right utensils and knife and fork and thing, and we were going to eat like decent people. To this day, it's a part of me. I set the table. Okay, so the real question is, what world did we prepare our children for? And what world did they actually inherit? That's where the disconnection came. Many of us prepared the children for the world as we experienced it, as we knew it. But between our growing up and our children growing up, our different world, the world changed significantly. Again, boomers, think about your experience with media. The first time you saw TV, the first time you saw cable, the first time you use a telephone. You remember the early days when phone box? Most of us didn't have the phone in our yard. You had to go to phone box and line up to make a phone call. You remember those days? Very different than the world that we raised our children in. We were raised to fit in to the structure. Our children were raised to define themselves. We gave our children options. We gave our children much of the freedoms that we never experienced. We were shaped by scarcity, discipline, authority. Our children were shaped by options, expression, personal identity. I remember having serious disconnections, even with my mother. Looking up from my mother raising me when I was a young adult. All these very, very different perspectives. And I remember an incident. I said, Mama, it's your fault, whatever all these arguments, it's so different, Your mistake, you made a big mistake because you sent me to school. And once you sent me to school, then I started to think for myself. Oh, who tell me to say that? I had to duck. A right hook came across my head. I was speaking the truth, but just a painful truth. So we look at our children and we see them. Many act so entitled. We are raising a generation that was trained to be self-centered. We didn't intend for it to work out this way. They're not broken. They're just differently calibrated. So that is part of the reality that we have to contend with, how we rethink. So we're going to use this time to, rethink the whole process, so we can see what did we do differently, what did we do wrong. Now, what about you? Looking at the gap between you and your parents, how your parents raised you, and you and your children, how you raise your children. What you try to tell them, what you try to teach them, what you try to do for them, and the reality of how they turned out. Now, folks, I give thanks. I never did too bad in terms of my children. I give thanks. They're all holding their own. We had some rough spots, but in terms of the rough spots, sometimes it turns out incredible, because I never gave up on them. Even the ones who went through rough spot, never did. But sometimes, so we want to talk about the whole process so we can see how best we can handle it. For those of you who know, you're in the anchor leg of life, you're looking at around, but you're not happy. You're not happy with how it worked out. Now, you did some things right, however. So you will start with that. You did some things right. So that's important. The first thing I want to remind you, look, you did not fail. Your expansion of the world, you expanded the world for your children. You gave them such a broader horizon, broader options and capability. I can see you speak for myself. I'm sure many of you did this. Everything any of my children wanted to experience within my limits, I try to facilitate it. They want to do dancing, they want karate, you name it. They want to take part in a play, they want to go on a school trip. Now, interestingly, when I look at when I was growing up, the school trips were to like a bauxite company, cement company. But my children have some very different school trip. I remember my son, one school trip was to go see the class went to a Broadway play in New York for the weekend. That wasn't part of our reality, but that was the reality with our children. Huh? So within what we could facilitate, now I know some parents who from the previous generation really they did not even facilitate their children taking part in events at school. I remember one person I know very well, her parents, nothing at school she could take part in because at school finish, you come home because if the bus leave you, remember those days? If the bus leave you, you're in trouble. So we try to expand the world for our children. We gave them voice. We gave them choice. We gave them possibility. We facilitated them thinking broader, wider than we did. That's exactly what many of us did. Our intentions were good. And now we're actually seeing the unintended consequences. Because many of those children are in there now. Look, I'm talking to you, baby boomers, children in their 20s and 30s and 40s, young adult, adult, and we're seeing the results, and many of us are disappointed. But we gave them freedom, and guess what? Sometimes freedom without structure can become a drift. Some of our children drifted. No, we're not talking about the big tune, drift. We're talking about when something, when a boat is not anchored properly and it just drift out to sea. Some of our children drifted. So this brings us to the part of the conversation many are afraid to have. The hard reality. Many of our children, as they approach adulthood, they never fulfilled the wishes and the dreams and the aspirations we had for them. What do I mean by that? We expected that by now, by the time we reach our 60s and 70s, right? We'll finish child rearing, but there are two things that reach a lot of baby boomers when they're looking back. Many of the children that we raised started out life, but the kind of grit that we had, they don't have it. And that's one of the byproducts of we probably overprotected them. So in terms of the kind of stick-to-itiveness required to, you work through the job, you take your time and you step by step and step until you, no, if it don't materialize in 1 week, them left the little work and come home because they're not feeling fulfilled. Remember when we had the little work that we got first, we never even thought about those things. You must feel fulfilled. You must have a purpose and so on. We realized that we had bills to pay. grandchildren to take care of. We make it work. But because of the children, the way we raise them with the kind of clarity in their own mind, many of them just leave the work and come home. Some have done it very often, some are still doing it. So some are still dependent on us. Would never expect for that. Some have even now have children bringing home for us to raise. Because you thought your child rearing days. Now, raising children is a very different thing than raising grandchildren, you know. The role of a grandparent with grandchildren, technically the role is to spoil them and enjoy them. And when you finish, go home to your mother, go home to your father. But when now you have to take on the role of parenting full time after you thought you did yours, because the children that you raised are now having children and many of them can't take care of them. And because of your parental passion, and so that children come home to you. How you deal with that? How are you dealing with that? That is something that many did not plan for, and that is, it's painful. It is painful. Some accept it, but some, the hidden crisis of adult children still depending on you. Why? Love, guilt, and over support may be costing both you and your future. Yes, you love them, maybe you love them too much. Guilt, maybe you feel guilty, them out there and them not doing as well as they want to. All right, come home, come home. Over support, you stretch what you never even had to help them out. In every step of their life, you are still helping them. So it many times it backfire. That's been the reality. So that's the reality. Baby boomers, parents born between say 1945 and 1964, 65, that 20 year span, huh? You mostly did everything right. You did the right thing. You worked, you sacrificed, you provided, you endured. Yes, most did. You told yourself, when I reach this stage of life, I will finally rest. That's what you said then, you know, about where you reach now. You will put in the hours and then because you want your children to get what you never got, do what you never did, achieve what you didn't. So now you will rest. But here you are, and that's what our focus is on tonight. Here you are, approaching retirement for many. Some of you are in retirement, but still carrying the responsibilities you thought you'd have long left behind. Bills associated with your children, working associated with your children. Your children, and that's the group we're talking about now, because we don't get much help with these kind of things. That's why we're devoting this program to that. Many baby boomers, parents born between 45 and 65, have grown children that are not settled. Children in their 20s and 30s and 40s, but not settled. Not settled at all. Children in their 20s and 30s and 40s, capable, but not consistent. I've known of some, who have finished a degree, but still sitting at home with mommy and daddy, still in their room same way. Because here's the paradox now. Remember the life that we have sacrificed to create for them, They got very comfortable. So to leave their room at home to go out and make life, most have to start from way below their present living. They can't. When I started life, I left home 1 month before I turned 20. I rented a room. I was working, paying school fee, and paying rent and taking care of myself. Many of our children, the idea of leaving home, comfortable room, light, food, water, everything accounted for, and go start from scratch. I started from there. So many of them are present, even all right, they're at home with you, but they don't make any progress in their life. Some start school and stop. Every time they start a program, they don't finish it. Finish the program, but don't get a job because they don't like what they're not being paid right, they're not being treated right. So quietly beneath the surface, there's this question, and many parents from that category, the baby boomers, are asking themselves, how did I get here? How did it come to this? What happened? The even harder question, how do I get out of it without feeling like I failed? Not just fail myself, but also fail my children. Because sometimes you look around, you see other parents who are your cohort, and their children found their way. Their children making life, and your children, some of them still at home with you. Is you still feeding them, buying clothes for them? I think it's even worse when now they're at home with you and having children. They can't take care of the children, and you now having to take care of the children. That's rough. So this is the conversation that nobody prepared you for. Not in your youth, not while you were parenting, and certainly not now as you approach retirement or even in retirement. This is not something you were prepared for. Because no one told you that love without boundaries can become a burden. We loved them, we did all we can for them, we did as much as we could, but it backfired. So how do we get out of this now? How do we find a way out? How do we? That's what we're trying to work on tonight. That's what we're trying to do. Love without boundaries can become a burden. Support without structure can become dependency. And the hardest part of parenting may come at the very end. So tonight, we speak about it clearly, honestly, and without guilt. Because we must raise these questions, we must talk about these things so we can answer it, we can move on. So let's speak plainly now. There are many of you listening who are carrying these burdens, these quiet burdens. Adult children still dependent on you. Adult children still not settled. Adult children still not standing on their own. And you ask, what do I do now? How long do I carry this? What happens when I can no longer provide? Let me say something that you may feel uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Prolonged support can become delayed development. This image, you ever see an image of when you're teaching a child to ride a bicycle, and you have training wheels, and the child is riding with the training wheels, and the bicycle tipping from side to side. But when you tip, the training wheels cannot balance. At some point, you have to take off the training wheels. At some point, you have to drop 1 or 2 times. But many of us never want their children to drop at all. So we never took off the training wheels. We never gave them a chance to test their own wings. Prolonged support can become delayed development. One of the things that I do, I facilitate employment. I hire staff for companies, mainly at the higher end as such. But I also help people with preparing resumes and helping people to prepare for interviews and how to package themselves and so on and things. And let me share 2 stories with you. Again, with similar kind of, the most common thing I get a call from a parent about a child who fall in the category we're talking about here, More often than not, it's a boy. Doc, the boy, him all finished degree and him at home same way. Every time him find a job, within 2 weeks him left it and come home. So them not pay him the right amount. They might take liberty with them and so on. And Doc, I'd like for you to help him to put together his resume. Or Doc, I'd like for you to help him to get a job and so on. And right away I said to the parent, listen, the fact that you're calling me, there are 2 problems. Not 1, 2. 1, you're doing too much. When the parent is the one making that phone call to me, you see the problem? It is the child that should be making the phone call to me. The child should be calling me. The parent realizes that there's a problem at 2 levels. But if the child don't recognize a problem, so that's 1. The parent is the one making the phone call. How many of you are the ones making that phone call? Try to quote unquote get help for your child. I'll give another example. Many years ago, a man called me and he said, Dr. Semaj, I'd like for you to hire my son, give my son a job. I said, no, the kind of work we do, as a consulting company and so on, we deal with a lot of confidential information. So we don't have anything that's a summer part-time work I could really do. And so it's not something that be very hard for us to find a way to. The man said, hold on, let me explain what I want. The man had his own company. But he didn't want his child to come there because he had a similar thing with an older child that had come to the company to work, and the child didn't know work and set all kind of bad example because his father is the boss and so on. He wanted not to make the same mistake with this one. The man says he will pay him, but he mustn't know says me is him paying. He will give me the money to pay him. But what he wants for him is to feel structure. If I'm late, I must race him up. If I give him something to do and him doing it half-heartedly, I must race him up. So I understand the world is so. So yes, I was asked for help with that because that's how he wanted to find a way out from there. So that's what we're dealing with. When support has no boundary, it stopped being love. It started becoming containment. You're not just helping them, you may be preventing them from becoming, because you did so much for them, you did too much. Because independence is not taught by comfort. Independence does not come from comfort. It's out of discomfort that you learn to fly. And because many of us, I'm using the us broadly because many of people don't know. I remember telling my children some very specific things, I remember when my son, he was gazing around before the time when, exam time and so on. And I said, listen, guys, we do farming, right? And I got, the place where you buy the farm supplies and the equipment from, they have some nice calendars. And this calendar had a weed whacker on it and all kind of power tools and water boots. And so I said, look at this list and tell me anything you see. No, let me show you something. And I explained to him that if books are expensive, if you don't plan to use the books, if you have no interest in academic stuff, then let me know. No problem. I will invest, I will buy you a water boots and a nice machete and 2 or 3 file so you can go look work. You're technically inclined, so I may even invest in a weed whacker so you can go look work. And I hang it up in his room and show him that, well, then you pick which one you want. So that if you're not going to read the book, then if you're not going to study, if you're not going to deal with academic issues, let me know. And I have used that same message with parents who bring children to me over the years. So the boy package is the water boots, machete, and file. The girl package is blue washing soap and some gloves so she can take in washing. Sometimes you have to be that direct with them to understand the reality. Independence is not taught from comfort. It is forged in necessity. Now, there are 3 psychological shifts that you as a baby boomer parent need to make. 3. Shift 1, from rescuer to reality mirror is the first one. Stop cushioning every fall. Sometimes they have to feel the consequences of their decisions. You can't keep cushioning every fall. Let them feel consequence. Let them face life, because reality is the teacher you cannot replace. Behavior have consequence. I've seen many situations where, because the child just grew up with the reality that, no man, daddy will take care of it. Mama will take care of it. Daddy will pay the bill. Mama will pay the bill. Because you've always taken care of things. You've always paid the bills. And it doesn't click into them that they now need to be in a position, so one, that they can take care of themselves. And the reality is that now, looking forward to now, how can I help mommy and daddy in old age? So that's step 1. You have to make the transition from rescuer to reality monitor. So my boy, with Dr. Semaj, it's hard, because when you see them and suffer and so on, I mean, sometimes you have to have it and tell them so you don't have it. Because if every time them come for you, they never know. Every time them put themselves in a situation, because they put them basket too high and can't manage it, mommy will take care of it, daddy will take care of it. The second shift you have to make, from provider to boundary setter. Yes, we provided from day one. We did the best we could. So we have to decide what we will continue to do and what we will no longer do, and hold the line. I decided very early with my children, because each of us, have our own. My understanding is that I have a responsibility to my children up to age 18. All right? Yes. feed, clothe, shelter, positively socialize, and educate. But if the child show promise and commitment, it goes beyond that. That's my worldview, and I will facilitate higher education. I did that for all my children because they showed promise. I will make sure that they get all the support that I can because they show the promise. They're working, they're delivering. I did that. So you have to make sure now that again, you shift from provider to boundary setter. Yes, you're still providing where you can, but you set boundaries. You set parameters and you hold that line. Not with anger, but with clarity. Here is what you're going to provide, but here's what you expect. Here is what you're going to do, but here is their part of the bargain. And you gently give them more room to maneuver so that they. The third shift that you have to make from guilt to responsibility. You feel guilty, but guilt is not guidance. Ask yourself, is what I'm doing helping them to grow or helping them to stay the same? And if you're honest, you'll realize that if you keep supporting the slackness, supporting incompetence, supporting behaviors that you know that they can do better, but they have chosen not to because whatever, mama will take care of the situation, daddy will take care of it. That's love. That weakens is not love. Love that weakens is not love. So that shift is necessary from guilt to responsibility. It's part of your responsibility to help them to make that transition. Sometimes you should have done it earlier. You know, one of the things that I encourage parents to do, because folks, I had a head start over many of you because one, I have a PhD in psychology. And my first child was born the year I completed my PhD. So that I didn't start having to deal with parenting until I was, I had a doctorate in psychology. So I give thanks for that. And a big part of my studies was child development. So that I had a head start over many parents. And when you see it in the rural area and some of the inner city communities. A child is 5, 6, 7, and you send the child to shop. And the child is learning responsibility. The child goes shop, have a little list sometimes they memorize it and they tell them what they need. Now, in the corporate area and in the urban centers and so on, when you don't have no corner shop and so on, supermarket and so on, what I teach parents in those early days, you want to pick up a few things in the supermarket. You drive, the child with you, you stop in the parking lot and you give the child the money and send them inside to buy the thing. So many just tell the child, the child in the car on them phone and all, and you gone inside. So you never give the child that adjustment to responsibility. The truth you must expect is that you can't build life for them. You can't. You can't. You cannot want it more than they want it. They have to experience it. So you have to, you didn't start early, you have to start now. How you start to let go. You cannot sacrifice your retirement to sustain their own delay. It's getting late now. One of the most painful things I heard Some parents come to me, and they're talking. They had two sons who, again, fall in this category, at home still in them 30s. Their vision is, boy, them went bust in the music. That's a dream of so many. And everything them now work because they have build tune and them went bust. And what this destroyed the parents when the parents came to see me, Dr. Semaj, when I heard the children, they thought I was sleeping. And then they're planning for the house. Yeah, man. Mommy and daddy soon dead, So we just have to wait them out, And then we have the whole house to ourselves now. How we can turn this room into the studio and then that room into the voicing. Yeah? You hear me? They were planning for the parents' house because they said, Mommy and daddy soon dead. So we just have to just wait. Here's the deep truth. If you collapse, you have no one. So you have to stay strong and alive to make sure that you are able to sustain them and help them to the best that you can. Is this hard? Yes, it's hard, but it's necessary. And part of the problems that the baby boomer parents are running into, because the world changed. It's a totally different world the children grew up in versus the one that we grew up in. And many of us did not know how to properly prepare the child for that world. And remember that you are just one source. I frequently say that home is the first school. Parents are the first teachers. Everything after is extra lesson. But guess what? It's not extra lesson. The culture, the media, were telling some very, very different lessons than you and home was provided. Much more powerful lessons with some powerful tools, so that the cards was stacked against us. So some of us didn't make it. So our children got caught up in the culture and the media. All right, we're figuring it out now. Time to forgive yourself. We've made suggestions. Now, after all of that, we come back to you. Forgive yourself for overgiving. Your heart was clean. Forgive yourself for overprotecting. You had good intentions. Forgive yourself for not knowing when to let go. You didn't want to see them drop. You didn't want to see them fail. No one taught you this phase. There was no manual. Parenting adults who refused to become independent. We never had a manual for that because we never saw it before. You remember when you were their age, you were just anxious to become an adult. Huh? So you can help mama and you can help papa. That was our aspiration. Huh? But now you know, and knowing changes everything. So it's time to do you. This is your turning point. Listening to this show is the turning point. We have raised some questions that you only struggled with in private. You've had some thoughts and feelings that you probably never shared with anybody else. And you felt it. You're struggling. But let this be the turning point. Remember at the beginning we talked about the ripple, the pebble in the pond, and the ripple, it keeps going. You're entering what I now call the anchor leg of life. Anybody who's a baby boomer, meaning born between roughly 1945 and 1965, you're in the anchor leg now, the anchor leg. This is not time for carrying unfinished lives. You can't, You can't carry an extra load in this. Huh? This is not the time to fund prolonged dependency. This is certainly not the time to wait for gratitude that may never come. Not like a sign of gratitude. Always gimme, gimme, gimme. Always take it, take it, take it. This is the time to ask, what about me? Your time now. Time to reclaim your time, your energy, your purpose. You did all the sacrifices because your life still belongs to you. It is time for you to take care of you. So, without any apology, you know, last week I went to get a pedicure because it's very awkward. I can cut my fingernails, and you can shape them up and all this kind of thing to make sure that. But it's very hard to cut toenails yourself, and you don't want to take the chance of cutting yourself and all of that. So I went to get a proper pedicure, and I do that every now and then. You look at your toe and you say, "Lord, yeah, remember?" And while it was being done, I took a video and I sent it to my brethren. Then, brethren, self-care is not selfish. Self-care is not selfish. Think of how much self-care you have put out for yourself because you really wanted to put that effort and money and time into helping your children. It's time to do you. It's time to do you. Because sometimes just by letting go and doing you send a message to them. When's the last time you got a pedicure and a manicure? When's the last time you got a facial? When's the last time you went somewhere and you had a wonderful meal? And it's you say everything you do, we can carry on for the children. So tonight, let us settle this. You did not fail. You raised children for a world that changed faster than expected. Some children adapted and survived and did well. I give thanks, folks. I say I had a head start again because I was fortunate, made some right decisions. I went. My mother's lesson is that I took 25 cents and make life. 25 cents and buy a newspaper and look for a job. Find a job and then look for a college and got in and work. Took me 5 years to finish the first degree. But then I did so well, I got accepted to do my PhD without spending a penny. So I was in school because my mother made some serious investment. From I was going to grade 1, I was with extra lesson every night. And why she did that? Because my mother didn't want me to come home from school before she come home from work. So by me being extra lesson, then another program I'll tell you about some of those things and so on. But it's time for you to do you now. You did not fail. You raised children for a world that changed faster than expected. Some adapted, some didn't. Some are still trying to find their way. And some will only find it when you step back, when you let go. So release the burden. Draw the line. Put it on me. Tell them Dr. Semaj said they must stop. Dr. Semaj said you must stop. Dr. Semaj must tell them, listen, you're a big man or you're a big woman. Time to stand on your own. All right. So this is important, folks. You've been carrying a burden, you've been holding on, you've been trying, and the children have been, some have been doing their part, some have not been doing their part. But it's time for you to, the best you can do is to let go. Let go. Tell them that you're not letting go out of malice, you're letting go with their best interest in mind. Because the more you keep supporting, maintaining, they will never get their wings. They will never start to fly. They will never. So it's important. It's important. You have other friends who are probably in the same boat. Talk to each other. Learn from each other. You may even have noticed a colleague of yours, a relative of yours, a friend of yours who similar, but now all of a sudden she realized that they're stepping back and doing less for the children so that they can do more for themselves. Because somehow it's as if the more you do for them is the more they expect you to do for them. And it continues on and on and on, and they never let go. They never let go. So it's your turn now to do for you. It's time to do you. You're not begging them anything. You were grateful if they offer you something. But no, you're not. You're not begging them because you did for you and you did for them too already. But now it's time to do you. Time to do you. So as we say in the Mind Spa, I firmly believe that the best is yet to come. I believe in tomorrow. Farmers plant seeds and wait because you nurture and time will do its job. So it's time for you to let go and let circumstances and time do its job now. So until we meet again, I'm Dr. Leahcim Semaj. This is the Semaj MindSpa, where ideas, concepts, thoughts, the ideas to make you the best version of yourself. So if you have any questions or a comment, you can leave a voice note at 876-383-5627. Leave a comment or a voice note. So till we meet again, have a wonderful, wonderful day.